Hayya ala salah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I find it much pleasure in being here with you at this time on this Friday for Jumu'ah. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala hadiya lahu, man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Bil mudaya wa dinil haqi وليودي رحمه الله أدني كله ولا كارها مشرك. آمنت بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسوله ويوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره من الله تعالى بيده معه. Today, my brothers and sisters, I'm referring to Surah Al-Asr. Because this surah is so significant that it can be clear guidance within itself. Such a small amount of ayat that have so much in-depth meaning. This surah is a witness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent it with clear, for lack of a better term, like a blueprint on directions. And this surah compressed into a few brief words that have a whole world of meaning. In this surah, an oath has been sworn by time. An oath is sworn by time. To impress certain points on man. And these points, whoever is not yielding their will to these instructions, it states that they're in loss. And those who are an exception from the loss are those characterized by 4 points. The first point is Iman, faith. And the second, righteous deeds. The third is exhorting one another to truth. And the fourth is exhorting one another to sabr, patience. As I mentioned in this surah, an oath has been sworn by the time. And again, I will mention these: Iman, righteous deeds, exhorting one another to truth, and exhorting one another to sabr, to patience. So let us consider of these parts separately in order to understand the meaning fully. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not sworn an oath by any created object on account of its glory, its excellence, or wonderful qualities, but for the reason that it testifies to truth. And this truth is meant to be established. Therefore, the oath by time signifies that time is a witness to truth. The truth that man is in sheer loss except for the people who possess 4 qualities. The word time is used for the past as well as for the passing time, in which the present, in fact, does not signify long stretch. You can take a second, and when that second is gone, or while it's in process, it's present. After that second, it becomes past. Here, since the oath has been sworn by time absolute, both kinds of time are included in its meaning. The oath by the past time means that human history testifies that the people who were without these qualities eventually incurred loss. And in order to understand the significance of the oath by the passing of time, one should understand that the time which is now passing is in fact the time which has been given to every single individual. And every single nation to work in the world. Its example is of the time which is allotted to someone who's taken an exam. And the time is passing, but their attention is on something else. So he fails to put in the answers. The time is passing. And when you think about it, each and every one of us have been allotted time by our age. I mean, we don't know how long we're going to be here, but it's a certain amount of time. So he's distracted. His attention is somewhere else when it should be on supplying the answers to the question for the examination. So the speed with which this time is passing can be estimated from the movement of the second hand. Even a second is considered an amount of time. For during this very second, we know that light travels at 186,000 miles per second. But in the kingdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it might be even faster. We don't know. However, if the speed of the passing time with regard as same as of the second hand, and whatever we consider that whatever act, good or bad, we perform, and whatever occupation we pursue takes place in a limited span of time. In a limited span of age that we have been given for work in this world. We thought, well, it's this very time, which is passing so quickly. A brother Imam has cited a scholar as saying, I understood the meaning of the pastor from an ice seller who was calling aloud for the attention of people repeatedly at a bazaar. Have mercy on the one whose wealth is melting away. Hearing what he was crying, it was stated that he said to himself, this then is the meaning of wal asra innal insana lafi khusr. The age limit that man has been allotted is passing quickly like the melting away of ice. If it is wasted or expended in wrong pursuits, like the individual who was there for an exam and wanted to text on his cell phone, it will be sheer loss to man. Thus, swearing an oath by the time, what has been said in the surah means that the fast passing time is witness that devoid of these four qualities, in whatever occupation and work man is expending his limited span of life, he is engaged in bad bargains. Only such people are engaged in good bargains who work in the world characterized by the four qualities. It would be just like calling attention to an individual who was expending the time allotted for solving the questions on his paper in some other pursuit, as we mentioned earlier, to the wall clock in the examination hall, to tell him that the passing time bore witness that he was causing loss to himself. This individual benefiting by the time was he who was using every moment of his allotted time towards solving the problems on his paper. Though the word man has been used in a singular in the following sentence, those people who have been made an exception from it, who are characterized by the four qualities, therefore, one will have to admit that here the word man has been used as a collective noun. It's been used as a collective noun, denoting a class. And it applies equally to individuals, groups, nations, and entire mankind. Thus, the general statement that whoever is devoid of the above four qualities is in loss will be proved in any case, whether it is a person who is devoid of these, or a nation, or all men of the world. It would be just like giving the verdict that poison is fatal for man. It would mean that poison is fatal in any case, whether it is taken as an individual, or a nation, or all the people of the world. Poison being fatal is an unchangeable truth. It does not make any difference whether one man has taken it or a nation has decided to take it, or all the people of the world collectively have agreed to take poison. In this same way, this truth by itself is unchangeable. That man being devoid of the four qualities brings him loss. General is not at all affected. Even if one man is devoid of these, or a nation, or all the people of the world agree that they would exhort one another to disbelief, immorality, falsehood, servitude of self. When we look at Kusra, the antonym is prophet. In trade, this word is used in the case when less results from one bargain, as well as in the case with whole business is running in loss, and also in the case when man loses all his capital and becomes bankrupt. The Quran has made this word a special term of its own and uses it as an antonym, falah, success. And just as its concept of falah is not merely synonymous with worldly prosperity, but comprehends man's true success from the world till the hereafter. So its concept of khusr, loss, also is not merely synonymous with worldly failure or distress, but comprehends man's real future and disappointment from the world till the hereafter. So both falah and kusra, as mentioned in several places in the Quran, I'll just take you to one. In Surah the frowning Nasa, this is Surah pardon me, the frowning Abbas. And in the Quran, it says, he frowned and turned his back when the blind man came to him. How could you tell? He might have sought to purify himself. He might have been forewarned, and the reminder might have profited him. But to the one who considers himself self-sufficient, you were all attention. Yet the fault would not be yours if he remained uncleansed. And this was Maktoum, a poor blind man who interrupted the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet was not pleased at this interruption. And this is what was revealed to him. This is what was revealed to the Prophet. It says that he might have been forewarned, and the reminder might have profited him, but to the one who considered himself self-sufficient, you were all attention. Yet the fault would not be yours if he remained uncleansed. As to him who comes to you with zeal and with feelings of fear in his heart, him you ignore and busy yourself with trifles. No, indeed, this is an admonition. Let him who will bear it in mind, it is written on honored pages, exalted, purified by a noble and devout scribes. So man's ungrateful attitude to Allah and his denial of him come up for discussion. Here man is reminded Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala determines his death and resurrection, and of how after all he failed to carry out his orders. And he says, perish man, how I create him of a little germ. He created him and proportioned him. He made his path smooth for him. He then causes him to die and puts him in his grave. He will surely bring him to light when he pleases. But by no means has man fulfilled his bid. And there's more. But the point is that how we can get distracted, how we can get very easily hijacked, I use that term, emotionally using this life. Truly deviating from the core qualities. So we understand that Iman faith is that elevating path through which our upright human nature can ascend to its ultimate perfection. In other words, all human deeds will be divided into two categories, the positive and the negative. To know the truth, to acknowledge it, to follow it, and to exhort it in its cause will be the positive side. For in the hereafter, these alone will have any weight and value. To neglect the truth, or to reject it, or to follow one's lust, or other human beings, or Satans, or to exert in the way of falsehood, will be on the negative side. The deeds on this side will not only be valueless in themselves, but will also decrease the weight of the positive deeds. From what is expressed, it is quite obvious that success in the hereafter will depend entirely on this, that a man's good deeds should outweigh his evil deeds. The cause of one whose evil deeds far outweigh the good deeds will be like that of a bankrupt who gives away all his possessions to pay off his debts, but still has some outstanding liabilities. There's a story about this so-called king. I want to share the story because it's relevant. And this individual was very hard to satisfy. He would have people bring him a string of horses before he decided on one. He would have people bring him clothes, sets of clothes before he decided on which to wear. So when he got himself together and him and his entourage took off on horseback, there was a tattered man who came upon him. and grabbed the reins of his horse. And the king was very indignant. What are you doing? The tattered man said to him, to make it clear, he was the angel of death. The king rebuked him for his audacity and ordered to take his hands off from the reins. He told the king that he had business with him. The king ordered him to wait till he got down from his horse, but he told that he would speak to him just then, right where he is, and saying that he snatched the bridle. The king permitted him to speak. He told the king that he would express that secretly. The king drew his ear near to him. The man said that he was the angel of death and that he had come to commend his soul to Allah, to God. This is what they said. As soon as the king heard that, his face turned pale. He started stammering. After a moment, the king requested that the angel to defer the matter and allow him to return home in order to enable him to settle his affairs and meet the members of his family. The angel of death said that the king would not be able to see his home and settle his affairs. On saying that, he extracted his soul from the body. The king fell down from the horse. After that, the angel of death approached the pious man. These are the two contrasts, those who are striving to yield your will to the divine laws and to keep our inclinations in accordance with what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought, which was the Quran, and those who get absorbed in the dunya, in the material world, and it becomes their every move. These are the ones that are being described as being in loss. The angel saluted the pious man, who in turn also greeted him. The angel of death informed him that he had to tell him a matter secretly. The pious man lent his ear near to him for the purpose. The angel of death disclosed his identity. The pious man gave him a warm welcome and said that his visit was auspicious for him because he was afflicted by his prolonged separation, and added that he was more desirous of meeting him than any other person. The angel of death bade him to accomplish the task which he deemed necessary to finish. He said that he had no longer except that he wanted to meet God. The angel of death asked him to opt for the state in which he wanted to die, so that he could extract his soul in that very state. The man asked the angel of death whether he had been given authority to do that. The angel of death told him that he had been ordered to show respect to his desire. The man requested that the angel of death to allow him to offer prayer after performing ablution, and added that he should extract his soul at that time. He would be in a state of prostration. When he knelt down in prayer, The angel of death extracts his soul. But I'm just pointing out these, and this is being emphasized because there's choices. There's choices. That foot that we have in that condition that's unnatural and not our own, we got to try to get that foot up out of there. And this is what we do while we're here. You only have a certain amount of time. As long as your life has been allotted, the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allotted for you to be here. So it's an ongoing struggle. But the beauty of it is that we have the hereafter that we look for. Those who are in loss, they don't have that. They conjure up different things. You see it all around. It's nothing that I'm, pointing out. It's been, hidden. It's everywhere. And this is what this is our stride in this life. For all that is good, acknowledging the four qualities that I mentioned earlier, and striving to yield our will in accordance with those four qualities. That is Iman and the righteous deed, exhorting one another to truth. Because your time is acknowledging the truth of whatever you did. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا. Another example of true success as we acknowledge that the truth has been stated by the Quran in several places. So let us consider four qualities on the existence of which depends man's being secure from loss and failure. Of that first quality, Iman, although this word at some places in the Quran has been used in meaning of only verbal affirmation of faith, Iman, and you can refer to Surah An-Nisa, Al-Ma'idah. However, several places you can research this for yourself. It has primarily been used in the meaning of believing sincerely and faithfully, and in the Arabic term, or in the Arabic language, also this word, this very meaning Sadaqahu wa tamada ahlehi, affirmed him and put faith in him And amanna bihi means aydana bihi, had full faith in him. And the faith which the Quran regards as true faith has been explained. And it says here, nay, O Prophet, by your Lord, they can never become believers until they accept you as judge for the decision of dispute between them, and then surrender to your decision with entire submission. After faith, the second quality required to save man from loss is to perform righteous deeds. Salihah. It comprehends all kinds of virtuous and good deeds. However, according to the Quran, no act can be good, a good act, unless it is based in Iman and is performed in obedience to the guidance given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that's why the Quran exhortation to perform good deeds precluded everywhere by faith, and in this surah too, it has been mentioned after the faith. Nowhere in the Quran has a deed without faith been called a good deed, nor any reward promised for a deed performed without faith. On the contrary, this also is the fact that only that faith is reliable and beneficial. The sincerity of which is proved by man's own act and deed. Otherwise, faith without righteous deeds would be a false claim refuted by the man himself, when in spite this claim he follows a way opposed to the way taught by Allah and his messenger. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the relationship between faith and righteous deeds is of the seed, the tree. Unless the seed is sown in the soil, no tree can grow out of it. But if the seed is in the soil and no tree is growing out of it, it would mean that the seed is lost in the soil. On this very basis, whatever good news has been given in the Quran has been given to the people who believe and do good deeds. And the same has been reiterated in this surah. What man requires to do after faith in order to remain secure from loss is to perform righteous deeds. In other words, mere faith without righteous deeds cannot save man from loss. You can take a person who is involved with a lot of things and different ways on acquiring their money. And it's known that how he acquires his money is unlawful, but still there are people who will view him as successful because of what he has. Because of the material things that he has. Because of the things that he engages in that does not appear to be illegal. We're surrounded by a lot of things, and this is why we have to yield our will to these four qualities on a continuous basis. Because we're surrounded by influences that are geared to take you away from, what we're striving for, peaceability. And those people who extend the negative influences in the society, although it's acceptable to the majority of the society, for every person that embraces their negative way, they're going to be dealt with. If not here in this life, here. They gave an example of one who I'll paraphrase, of one who commits adultery. And one who well, what it was saying that one who commits adultery and how that act impacts down the line, they're going to be responsible in a lot of ways for that act and the consequences of that act. And as we have our time here, it's not even enough time to deal with the consequences of our actions. It has to go over into the here. It has to. So this is why we strive as though in the race to amass as much good as we can, because how we influence a person positively or negatively, you're going to feel it some kind of way. If it's good, alhamdulillah. If it's negative, you will have to be accountable for how you impact on someone else's life. Safala, when the brother says, come to success, Fala is not used in limited sense of worldly success, which never suffers any loss. Whatever, irrespective of what the fact, whether the claimant gains or does not gain any worldly success in the initial stage, it is just possible that a false claimant who invites people to misguidance should attain, and this is what we talked about, should attain great worldly success. And his misguidance might also prosper. And this is, however, success in the terminology of the Quran, but this would be an utter failure. So, even though it appears as being prosperous, it's utter failure. On the other hand, it is also possible that the inviter to truth should suffer untold afflictions or fall a prey to persecutions of the transgressors and leave this world without winning over anyone to the side of the truth. But this will be, in the terminology of the Quran, true success and not failure. The other thing that refutes the fallacy of these foolish people is that they do not take into consideration the divine law of respite. We understand that because we know that in the creation of Adam alayhi salam, when Iblis was asked to bow down, and he refused for all the different reasons, his arrogance, and he refused to bow down. He knew who was in control of all things. He knew that Allah was in control. This is why he asked Allah for respite for an appointed time. And he said that he's coming from the front, the back, and both sides. And he will seduce all but the firm in Iman, the firm in faith. Alhamdulillah. It's mentioned in Surah Al-Mu'minun. It's believers who have attained true success, and those who have accepted the message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and have acknowledged him as their guide and followed this way of life taught by him, this assertion or assertion cannot be fully appreciated unless one keeps in view that the background in which it was made, on the one hand, there were the well-to-do and prosperous chiefs of Mecca, the opponents of Islam, whose business was thriving and who were enjoying every good thing of life. And on the other hand, there were followers of Islam, the majority of whom were either poor from the beginning or had been reduced to poverty by ruthless antagonism to Islam. Therefore, the assertion most certainly, the believer has attained true success, for which the discourse begins, was meant to tell the disbelievers that the criterion of success and failure that they had in mind was not correct. It was based on misconceptions. Besides being transitory and limited in nature, it led to failure and not true success. On the contrary, the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam truly successful, because by accepting the invitation to right guidance given by the messenger of Allah and everlasting bliss in this world as well as in whereas by rejecting the opponents incurred loss and would meet with evil consequences, both in this world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us, align our lives in this life with the truth, and that we can hold on to all that is good, strive as though in a race toward all that is good, hold on to our iman, because our iman is a light, it's a guidance to show you where to place your feet along an elevating path toward which upright human nature ascends to its ultimate perfection. It is our protection, and with this understanding, we can wake up and we can smile, because the point is we're on the move. We're on the move. We're trying to get to a place that those who incur loss, they don't know. They don't know. They conjure up their paradise. When one of their deceased passed, when one of their family members deceased, they say, "Oh, I know he's in heaven." They don't know. They don't know. And as I mentioned, it's all around them. It's around them. You know, but here in this book is guidance, sure without doubt. And the example of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam is the best example. You know, there were other prophets, but they came and they addressed the people for their time. Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam came, his message was for all of mankind, for everybody. So may Allah keep us safe until we meet again and protect us and grant us success here in this life and in the hereafter. God come to Salah.